Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. I recently spent about 3 hours trying out Lost Epic, a neat little indie game in the Metroidvania subgenre I call symphony-like. I had a good time with it, but also have some mixed feelings. Either way, I do want to thank the developer for providing me with the review code, and I will be very curious what they produce next, especially if they iterate on what they've done in Lost Epic. Lost Epic was published by 1or8 Incorporated, who are also responsible for Earth's Dawn, or I believe in Eastern countries it's translated Earth Wars or something like that. Anyway, the visual style was the first thing that really stood out to me when I saw footage of this game. It has an anime art style, but it's animated in a way that reminds me of like Flash animated games, with characters that are two-dimensional, you know, moving in a side-scrolling environment that have kind of a paper marionette style to their movement and their look, and I really don't care for that style of animation. I see that in some indie JRPGs from like Koei Tecmo, or I believe is or Kemco. No, I'm thinking of Kemco, I think. Some of the Kemco RPGs have that style. I really don't like it. And the art style is also not my favorite, but I mean, I've certainly played enough JRPGs in my day that I've gained a tolerance and at times a genuine appreciation for it. It's just not my go-to art style, but definitely the animation is not what I would choose. But both of those visual aesthetic issues did become less of an issue than I assumed they would, because the combat still looks flashy and impactful somehow to me while I'm playing. Maybe because I'm so focused on the arc of the weapon in front of me and the flashiness that comes along with that, more so than focusing on the movement of my character. I don't know. As far as the sound goes, there is intermittent voice acting in a non-English language. I'm thinking maybe Japanese. I turned it off. It just was a distraction to me, but I generally do that in video games. The music, I felt, did set the tone in a way that fit the visuals, but it otherwise stays out of the way. Although, sometimes I go back and forth. Sometimes I wish that the music, you know, would just set the mood, stay out of the way. And other times I'm like, man, but in other symphony-likes, especially the ones, you know, that are part of the actual Castlevania series, have some really catchy music. I didn't feel like that was the case at all here. It even loops a little too frequently, so even when it's kind of ambient, I still notice the looping, and I'm like, boy, we're repeating these however many measures a little bit too often. The sound effects are fine, but not especially memorable or impactful on the experience for me. As far as, like, you know, I describe it as a symphony-like, let me just detail what those core elements are that this game has. It has an RPG level-up system. In this case, both with stats and with gear. You get a currency from defeating bad guys that can be used. It's used for all kinds of things, for purchasing gear, for crafting, and also just for, like, paying for stat upgrades. And you have the ability to grind, because enemies do eventually, not right away, but they do eventually respawn when you return to an area. And there's actually a ton of upgrading and gear crafting that you can do, although I haven't used the crafting system a whole lot. In fact, not much at all yet. It's side-scrolling, platforming type stuff, not with pits that you can fall into and die instantly, but really more in that Metroid style of horizontal and vertical exploration. You get a double jump really early on. You have unlocked abilities that increase your access to different areas of the map. For example, in the first 3 hours I got a stone breaker attack that allows me to demolish these stone walls that otherwise block my ability to continue progressing into new areas of the larger map. You have save points that restore health, and so it has that same feel in the symphony-like Castlevania games, where you're thinking, okay, how long can I keep exploring, hoping that a save point with health restoration will show up? You know, you're kind of pushing your luck and your skill along the way. So it has that same kind of vibe. It also has, I can't remember if it's marketing itself for this at all, but it has some light Souls-like elements, which are normally a big turn-off for me and would actually steer me away from games that use that kind of terminology in their marketing. But it has a stamina system, which really, at least on the easy difficulty that I'm playing on, doesn't impact the gameplay. I can pretty much button mash and don't have to worry about running out of stamina when I'm simply attacking. However, you do have a dodge roll move that just gives you invincibility frames for, I think, the entire duration of the animation. That does take quite a bit of stamina, and so they even tell you in the tutorials not to lean on that too much, but to do other things like counter and stuff, which counter in this game, simple, it basically involves attacking at the same time you're being attacked, you know, so it's got some of those kinds of pseudo-deliberate elements of the combat, but really, especially on the easy difficulty, I can do plenty of button mashing. Let's see, it does have, when you die, that you drop all your currency. You don't lose your equipment, but you lose all of your currency, and you can come back to that spot after respawning to reclaim it. So, but that's really about the limits that I've seen of it being, you know, comparable to a Souls-style game. Additional elements that I like include, as I mentioned before already, the crafting system. There's a lot of component collecting. There's even growing and harvesting of plants. That you can do in this game, which I just learned about and haven't really tapped into yet. There's so far a lot of the gear recipes that I'm acquiring or that I start out with are more about crafting gear that just changes your aesthetic look than upgrading your stats. I am running into new recipes that give me gear options to upgrade my defense and stuff like that, but it seems like, at least at the start, most of the recipes that I have or that I run into are of this kind of aesthetic vibe. And it does have an online component that I haven't explored at all. Apparently you can help other players or ask them to help you or whatever. I've not been messing with that at all, but maybe that's why, since there is some light multiplayer component, that they have some of that those aesthetic gear options. Although, you know, you can enjoy those in single player too, as I sometimes do. But really, you know, I feel like there's a good amount in this game that I haven't really dug into yet, because of some translation issues in the game. You definitely notice in the dialogue, but it's more relevant to my experience when the game is describing systems to me, and I'm like, I can usually I think every time I've figured out what they mean, but it does take a moment where, like, oh, I think by this they actually mean this, or they're referring to this. There'll just be some broken sentences and some usage of words. I'm like, I don't think they mean to use that word. I think they're meaning this other word, you know? So I think your mileage is going to vary as far as like what you're able to decipher, but for the most part, you know, just because I'm a gamer and I've played plenty of games that have similar qualities to this one before, that I'm able to figure out, oh, okay, I think they basically mean this. But at the same time, it has kept me from immediately understanding all the systems and just being excited about diving into them. There are multiple difficulty levels, as I already alluded to. I played it on the easiest because I tend to suck at action games, but also because I like to learn game systems at my own pace. So sometimes later on, once I've learned, okay, I guess I will get around to learning how to dodge or whatever, or this combo or whatever. I don't like to be forced to learn those things in order to progress right at the start. But eventually, for my own sense of fun, I'll learn them more for flavor than for tactical advantage. But at the start, at least I'm playing on easy. Maybe I'll bump it up later. You can change the difficulty as you enter or exit these larger zones of the larger kind of Metroidvania-style map. So anyway, we'll see what happens as I make my way further into the game. But just kind of some overarching thoughts. I would say that it's priced at $22 in the PlayStation Store. It's also available on Steam for like $24 and some change. And that's more than I would want to pay for this. Personally, I would wait for it to go on sale for under $10. Then it would feel definitely worth the price. Maybe when I would even feel like, yeah, that's a bargain, But I mean, that's kind of knowing what I know now about where I would want to pay $10 or less. The combat is fun on easy for me with simple combos that I do enjoy executing. It gives me a lot of the core elements that I like from symphony-like style games, but the aesthetic is ultimately not for me. I really think that that's kind of holding me back more than anything else from really wanting to stay in this world and keep exploring. The art, it's not my favorite style, but it's fine. I think it's that paper marionette style animation that's keeping me from really being excited. It's not exactly a turn-off. It's just keeping me from really being excited to get in there and to animate this character and have them jump and explore and fight and stuff like that. And the translation issues are just frequent enough that I always feel a bit at arm's length from what I feel like the game wants to offer me, but is unable to really clearly communicate and offer to me because of the translation issues. I've definitely had some fun, and I imagine that I'll play it some more at some point, but I'll need to really have a hunger for a symphony-like and not have another option in the genre that's more inviting. And with Record of Lodoss War, D-Lit, and Wonder Labyrinth still on my list to finish, and a couple other symphony-likes I just picked up on sale to try out and see what I think of, that means that it really could be a while before I come back to Lost Odyssey. But I do think there will be some fun waiting for me when I do. Now, before finishing up, I want to comment on the themes. I always like to look for any potential themes that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation, specifically spiritual and moral themes coming from a Christian perspective. In myths, heroes often will find themselves opposing the gods, and I think that happens because of this natural feeling that we can have in life that whatever powers that be that are in control of the universe are treating us unfairly. And so in the Greek myths and other polytheistic myths, you'll have this whole pantheon of gods that is always made up of very flawed gods that for some reason people still find themselves, I guess, worshiping or maybe begrudgingly paying homage to in some way, but there's a kind of a push and pull antagonism between the worshipers and the gods. And I think as Christians we can say, well, I don't believe that. That's not who God is. However, I don't know about you, but I can certainly, in some of my harder experiences, difficult seasons of life or of the year or whatever the case might be, find myself asking questions, wondering in those emotional states about God. Why is he distant? Doesn't he care? Did he do this because he's angry at me? There's all kinds of different thoughts that can pop into our minds, and we can find our difficult life experiences negatively coloring our view of God and his character. And I think that's when we play games that are polytheistic like this, and especially those that have mortals having an adversarial relationship with the gods, I think that can go in one ear and out the other. But if we want to, we can leverage it and use that as a reminder to just ask ourselves, what's my view of God as I understand him from Scripture, and what kind of thoughts about him are coming to mind as I'm dealing with hard things in life? And am I perhaps harboring thoughts and feelings, or even that are causing me to become bitter or jaded on some level, instead of talking through those thoughts and feelings about God with grounded, gracious, and understanding believers who are wiser and more knowledgeable in the faith than I am? So anyway, I think that's a worthwhile exercise that we can choose to jump into when we run into games like Lost Epic, that does kind of pitch you as a god slayer to go out and take down the corrupt gods, as the core story is, which I didn't mention earlier. Sorry about that. Anyway, but yeah, I guess that's all I would have to say for now about this one. And again, the name of the game is Lost Epic, available on the PlayStation Store and on Steam. For me, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I definitely found some enjoyment with it. And those are all of my thoughts for now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Hey guys, Peter Franson here. Want to play games to save lives? Then join me again this year for Game Save, our annual charity fundraising event in support of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, whose compassionate care and cutting-edge research has been saving the lives of children all over the world for decades. Joining the GameSave team only requires a willingness to ask friends and family to consider donating toward your fundraising efforts. Team members also usually do something fun and game-related to draw attention to their fundraising, like a special game night at your church or home, or like me, you could do a crazy 24-hour video game marathon. Now, I'm theming my fundraising around video games, but you can use tabletop games of any kind. What you do to raise funds is really entirely up to you, but by joining the GameSave team, you can get support and encouragement from myself, from other team members, and have more attention drawn to your fundraising efforts. You can get more info about the origins and heart behind GameSave itself at gamesave.christiangeekcentral.com. To join the team, just follow the invite link below, make an account at tiltify.com. Then from your dashboard, create a new individual campaign using St. Jude Play Live 2022 as your cause, and check Support an Existing Campaign. Type CGC in the campaign search field and select CGC GameSave 22. To help your donors, I recommend including CGC GameSave 22 in the name of your individual campaign as well. After that, it's a short, simple process to finish up, and you'll be an official member of the GameSave 22 team. After that, as team leader, beginning in October, I provide team members with weekly tips and resources to make your fundraising as fun, easy, and effective as possible. October will be our main push for fundraising, capping things off with my annual 24-hour video gaming live stream on November 5th. Although you are welcome to continue fundraising until the end of November 30th, when our official final total will be tallied. If you have any questions before or after signing up, you can reach me anytime at paeter@spiritblade.com. I'm happy to help, and I hope you'll consider being a part of this with me. I can't wait to get started. Thanks for listening.